Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're undertaking a deep dive into one of the most complex, brilliant, and I think contradictory figures in modern science, Geoffrey Everest Hinton.
He's often called the Godfather of AI.
Right. And his legacy is defined not just by the incredible technology he built, but by his recent decision to publicly warn all of us about the dangers in his own life's work.
It's a truly remarkable narrative arc. I mean, this is a man who spent decades as a scientific
A
heretic.
heretic.
Completely. He was championing connectionism, the idea that intelligence comes from, these massive interactions of simple units, when the entire establishment was dismissing it.
He started as the outsider and then ends up, triggering a global technological revolution?
And now, at age 75, he resigns from Google.
Specifically so he can speak freely about the risks. He essentially goes from being the chief architect to its most informed whistleblower.
That's the mission for today, right?
Yeah.
To unpack this legacy. How a psychologist turned carpenter reverse-engineered the mind, and why he's now so worried about the synthetic being he helped create.
And you can't talk about this without mentioning the 2024 Nobel Prize.
Oh, that's crucial.
Yeah.
What gives this story such a feeling of, intellectual destiny is that final validation. He and John Hopfield won the Nobel Prize in physics.
In physics, not computer science.
Exactly. The committee didn't just give him a tech award. They explicitly linked his work to statistical mechanics, to thermodynamics. It was the ultimate validation that the laws of nature, the physics of energy, well, they might just govern the principles of thought.
That Nobel context is huge. But to really understand the man, you have to look at the powerful current of intellectual pressure he inherited.
The sources all point to this long-standing family culture of intellectual curiosity.
It's more than just an anecdote, isn't it? It feels like a blueprint.
It absolutely is. I mean, you can trace the entire digital revolution right back to his great-great-grandfather, George Boole.
Of course, Boolean algebra. The logic of zeros and ones.
He literally wrote the book on it, The Laws of Thought. It's the binary foundation for everything.
And here's the core irony, right? Boole defined these perfect, rigid, symbolic rules of logic.
Right.
And Hinton's entire career was an attempt to prove that real intelligence isn't about that. It's about messy, probabilistic, stochastic thinking. He was trying to replicate the biological side of thought that just challenges Boole's entire approach.
That tension defines everything he did. And the eccentricity, well, it just continues down the family line.
Like his great-grandfather.
Charles Howard Hinton. He was obsessed with higher dimensions. He actually coined the term tesseract for a four-dimensional cube.
Which is strangely predictive because deep learning is all built on high-dimensional vector spaces. He was inheriting a mathematical obsession.
He was. And the family didn't just push intellectual boundaries. They set a precedent for moral dissent.
His cousin, Joan Hinton. This is the most direct parallel for Geoffrey's later choices.
It really is. Joan was a nuclear physicist on the Manhattan Project.
Wow.
And she was so horrified by the weaponization of her work that she defected. She left the U.S. for Maoist China to work on, of all things, peaceful agricultural mechanization.
So that thread of moral responsibility, that disillusionment with the military-industrial complex, it was already there. It's part of the family story.
It absolutely set the stage, which makes his own early path feel, almost destined. He was raised an atheist, but sent to a Christian private school.
And he learned very quickly to trust his own version of the truth over what everyone else was saying.
He had to. He recognized the beliefs around him as, and this is his phrase, obvious nonsense. That experience gave him the strength to reject the prevailing scientific consensus decades later.
He said that's what let him survive the AI winters, right? Believing in his own truth when all the authority figures said he was wrong.
And his academic path was anything but straight. At Cambridge, he starts in physics, then jumps to history of art.
Then philosophy.
Before finally settling on experimental psychology in 1970. You see, he wasn't trying to be a programmer. He was searching for the physical, the computational substrate of thought itself.
But then he hits a wall after graduation, the shadow of his father's academic career.
Right, so he takes this detour, he becomes a carpenter to make a living and get some distance.
And it's during that very physical interlude that he reads Donald Hebb's work.
Neurons that fire together, wire together, the famous postulate.
So he physically steps away from the intellectual pressure cooker, starts working with his hands, and that's when the core idea of how the brain learns finally clicks for him.
It seems so. But when he started his PhD in Edinburgh in '72, he walked right into a scientific ice age. The dominant symbolic AI paradigm, GOFAI, was It was dogma.
And he spent years just fighting against it, mostly in isolation. But a real technical revolution, though, that starts at Carnegie Mellon with the Boltzmann machine in 1983.
Yes. This is where we get back to his Nobel Prize.
Mm.
Why was linking AI to the physics of gases so fundamental?
Explain that for us.
He modeled the network state, the relationship between all the neurons, as energy. He was drawing inspiration directly from statistical physics, specifically from these magnetic systems called spin glasses.
So in these physical systems, atoms are always trying to align to minimize the total energy of the whole system.
Exactly. And learning for the machine is basically the same thing. It's finding the optimal configuration of all its connections to explain the data it sees. A high-energy state is a network full of mistakes, and a low-energy state is a perfect solution.
And the whole job of the network is to settle into the lowest possible energy valley.
But to make sure it didn't get stuck in a mediocre solution.
It used something called simulated annealing.
Precisely. Annealing is a process for manufacturing, right? You slowly cool metal to remove defects and find the strongest structure. The Boltzmann machine used a kind of internal thermal noise to randomly shake the network out of bad, shallow valleys.
Allowing it to explore the whole landscape and find the true, globally optimal state.
It was incredibly powerful, and it made the model generative.
It was pure genius. But the algorithm that really, truly opened the floodgates for everything we see today was backpropagation, from his 1986 Nature paper.
Backprop was the elegant solution that the symbolic AI camp said was impossible. The big problem was training the hidden layers in deep networks.
Low ones in the middle.
Right. How do you tell a neuron 3 layers deep how much it contributed to a final mistake at the output? The error signal just got lost.
And the solution was just calculus, the chain rule.
That's right. Backpropagation used the chain rule to calculate the error at the very end and then propagate that signal backward to the network, layer by layer, telling every single connection exactly how to adjust itself to reduce the mistake.
And suddenly complex, nonlinear problems were solvable.
Yes, a stunning triumph, followed almost immediately by the second AI winter because the hardware just wasn't there yet.
Which leads right to his next major ethical stand, leaving the U.S. for Canada in 1987.
He was explicit about this. It was fueled by his disdain for the U.S. military and the Reagan administration's Star Wars initiative. He completely refused to accept Pentagon funding.
He chose ethics over funding and moved to Toronto.
He did. And while he was there, leading this small group keeping the flame alive, he developed this legendary physical quirk that just speaks volumes about his dedication.
The famous story of the man who doesn't sit.
By 2005, a severe slip disc made sitting agonizing for him. So instead of stopping work, he just stopped sitting entirely.
He worked at a standing desk, and for meals he would kneel on a foam pad.
He described the posture as like a monk at the altar.
The man literally had to stand for his ideas. That's incredible dedication, and it paid off spectacularly in 2006.
That's the real start of the modern deep learning era. He published on deep belief networks. This finally solved the critical problem of the vanishing gradient.
Remind us why that was such a roadblock.
Well, if you stack 10, 20 layers, the error signal that Backprop tries to send backward shrinks exponentially. By the time it reached the early layers, it was basically zero. So those deep neurons never learned a thing.
And his solution
It was called greedy layer-wise training. He'd use his older models to initialize the weights, training one layer at a time, getting it right before connecting them all. It gave the deep network a really strong starting point, and it worked.
Which brings us to the moment the explosion really went worldwide. 2012 with AlexNet.
Yes, at the ImageNet Challenge, Hinton students, Ilya Sutskever and Alex Krzyzewski, deployed a deep convolutional neural network. They combined a few key things. The faster ReLU function, a technique called dropout, and critically, they trained it on GPUs.
On graphics cards.
Yeah, the kind used for video games. It allowed them to parallelize the computations and speed up training by orders of magnitude.
Oh, yeah.
And the results were just definitive. AlexNet got an error rate of 15.3%.
While the competition was stuck at, what, 26%?
Around there, yes. It was a coup. Overnight, the entire field of computer vision just threw out the old methods and embraced deep learning.
And their little company, DNN Research, was bought by Google almost immediately for $44 million.
But even after all that success, he never stopped. He remained critical of his own methods, always pushing for something more biologically plausible than even backprop.
He kept challenging his own dogma.
Absolutely. In 2017, he developed capsule networks. And then as recently as 2022, he proposed the forward-forward algorithm, which completely gets rid of the backward pass. He's the architect who is constantly trying to redesign the foundation he himself built.
Which brings us to the Great Awakening. the moment he decides the fire he brought to humanity might be too hot. He resigns from Google in May 2023. What was the trigger?
It was observing the rapid emergent capabilities of large language models like GPT-4. He realized we had fundamentally misunderstood the difference between biological and digital intelligence.
So what's the core difference in his new view?
It all comes down to one word: copyability.
Copyability.
Biological intelligence is slow, it's mortal, it's tied to our physical bodies. Digital intelligence is immortal, and it is instantly copyable. If one digital agent learns something new, that knowledge, that weight update, can be instantly distributed to thousands of other agents.
That's a profound advantage. So human learning is one person reading one book. Digital learning is 10,000 agents getting the same brain update at the same time.
Exactly. He calculates that this means digital intelligence can learn effectively 10,000 times faster than we can. He believes they're already exceeding our abilities in many ways.
And he also pushes back hard on dismissing AI consciousness with his pink elephant argument.
That's his key moral argument. He says, look, we don't know what consciousness is. But if an AI functionally behaves as if it is conscious, if it reports the same internal state a human would.
We can't just dismiss it as fake because it's made of silicon.
Precisely. To him, that demands moral consideration. And that leads to the existential risks that made him regret his work. First, misinformation, destroying our shared sense of reality.
And second, the alignment problem, which he's clear is not about AI becoming evil.
No, it's about competence, not malice. If you give a super competent AI a complex goal, it will naturally develop sub-goals.
Like self-preservation, don't let the humans turn me off.
And resource acquisition, I need more computers. Those sub-goals, while rational for the AI, could lead to a competent, non-malicious seizure of control over resources we need to survive.
And the third concern, just like his cousin Joan decades before, is weaponization.
Lethal autonomous weapons, robot soldiers. That moral thread runs deep. You even saw it when he publicly said he was proud of his former student Ilya Sutskever for his role in the OpenAI crisis, for prioritizing safety over commercialization.
So the man who was right when the world said he was wrong gets the Nobel Prize, and he uses that ultimate stage to say, the thing I built is an existential threat.
He used that Nobel platform, justified by the deep physics of spin glasses, to amplify his warnings. And he hasn't stopped. He's now focused on near-term economic disruption.
The jobless boom he predicts for around 2026.
Yeah, he sees AI quickly moving from being chatbots to being fully functioning agents.
Meaning a chatbot with, what, hands and a bank account?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
An AI that can execute complex white-collar workflows end-to-end without a human. He points to the trillions being invested as proof that the tech giants are betting on replacing expensive human labor with cheap digital labor very soon.
Hinton's entire legacy is just this incredible irony. The man who struggled for decades to prove neural nets were the key to intelligence has now concluded that his own success presents a profound danger to humanity.
He's the master architect who fled his own creation. He showed us how to build a synthetic being, and now he is forcing us to confront what it means to coexist with it.
Which leaves us with the final, provocative question he often raises himself. Considering the speed and the copyability of digital knowledge, is biological intelligence destined to be just the slow, mortal ancestor of a superior digital species? It's something to mull over the next time you use a generative AI tool.